Welcome to the Firebelly Social Show. We're focused on talking to food and beverage brands that are on a mission to make the world better.
Hey, everyone. Duncan here with another episode of the Firebelly Social Show, where I chat with leaders and founders of mission-driven food and beverage brands. And today we've got a special guest who works with a lot of mission-driven food and beverage brands. So I'm excited about that. A quick shout out to Firebelly Marketing for making this episode possible. Firebelly helps food and beverage brands with their social media marketing, cutting through the clutter, helping build engagement, and being strategic. If you want to turn followers into loyal customers, check out firebellymarketing.com. So today's guest, he's a powerhouse in the world of logistics, fulfillment, and brand scaling. I want to introduce you to Paul Jarrett, the CEO, co-founder, and co-owner of Bulu Group. Paul, welcome to the show.
Duncan, thanks so much for having me on, man.
My man, you have, as my Gen Z team would say, you're given Hollywood energy, baby.
I've heard that before. I don't know what that is.
I mean, your journey's been anything but ordinary. I mean, in your
Yeah, yeah,
own words, you've gone from growing up in a Nebraska trailer park to
yeah.
leading a company that has worked with some of the biggest names in the business, Amex, BuzzFeed, Clorox, Disney, and all the countless other brands. But you've had a simple mission. You just want to help brands ship like the big players without the big brand headaches. I mean, I love it.
Yeah. It's interesting. We start out 12 years like looking for a company like ours that existed, and go figure, 10, 12 years later, we had to build it ourselves.
And you're kind of known, I'm gonna ad lib this one. You're kind
Yeah,
of known for your no nonsense action figure. Okay, kidding.
yeah,
Action driven approach. And
yeah.
you have kind of cut through the clutter. You've been an innovator, and you've really helped companies scale faster.
Yeah, I would say, this hurts me a little bit to say, but it's the truth. Like, I hate logistics, fulfillment, 3PLs. Like, intentionally, when we started the company, we avoided them. And there was always just smoke. It feels like a smoke and mirrors industry, right? And there was always hidden fees, and things went wrong, and it was always we learned about the problems after they occurred and whatever. And so, when you're kind of one of the last entities to touch a product, um, I think it's really a disservice to inform a client later or just say like, hey, this thing broke, you got to pay for it or whatever. And so when we decided to really focus on fulfillment logistics, we really, I think people would be a little bit surprised at how direct we are. And when something's a bad idea, like we'll tell them, or, if they're shipping something a certain way, it's really easy for us to say, we'll do that and we'll make money off of it. And, you're just asking us to do something, but we'll really sit down with somebody and tell them like, like this is a bad idea. Like you're shipping this thing in, chocolate in middle of July down south, or whatever it is. And I think clients really, they're a little bit shocked at that at first, but then also they realize it's kind of like a doctor like telling you to take your medicine, right? And so we've just had that attitude of, and I think a lot of it comes from we used to have our own product as well. And it was like kind of the thing that we were looking for. It's like you can find a lawyer that, totally takes directions and they'll take your money and whatever. And then you can find like a lawyer that's very forward thinking and they're guiding you. And I think that's just the position that we've taken, and it's really benefited us. And I think a lot of our clients would attest to like that's why they stay with us because even we'll see companies spend a ton of time and resources and they have their strategic planning and this, that, and the other thing. And it'll come down to us and we're like, yeah, we don't, just so you know, like we'll do it, but like we don't think it's a good idea because of XYZ. And they're shocked a lot of times. But if we can get them to kind of take that back to their group and explain the thinking, a lot of times, now I'll spend my times on strategic calls with companies now. It's not rare at all for there to be a big meeting with our brand and one of their partners, like an Amazon or who's the one we're working with now, like Crunchyroll. And it's, people are kind of like, what's the logistics guy doing here? But it's like, hey, I've seen it all. I've seen a ton of brands do a ton of different things, and just to add kind of to those strategic meetings, I think really surprises people. So they're always like, "Why are you in logistics in Nebraska?" And my answer to that is like, because nobody's doing it the right way. So yeah, we like that really straightforward approach with people.
Well, I mean, I know you describe it as a cut the ship, uh,
Yeah, yeah,
cut the ship approach, but I
yep,
mean, isn't that the truth? I mean, I find that in our business, we're in the social media marketing business. It is people don't expect you to be candid. You know,
right,
they
right,
they think like, and it really goes against the how versus the who, right? If I mean, most
right.
people think like, how do I learn how to do this? How do I get it done? As opposed to who is going to get it done for me, right? And that's where we people like us come in. We're coming in to say, hey, listen, we're going to get it done, and not only that, you're going to waste your money and you're going to fail if you do it that way.
Yep, yep. It's sometimes a painful conversation, but it's like, I mean, what's interesting is you feel like you might lose a lot of business. And I think in the short term, like you do, because people kind of don't want to hear it. But the positive is in the long term, you end up gaining a lot, and a lot of people will send us our way. And I take pride in that. 9 out of 10 calls with the people that we potentially work with don't end up in business because we're guiding them to the right answer, which many times isn't even us, right? So, but it just goes back to like, we are what we wished existed when we first started.
I mean, I think part of it also, I mean, it's an integrity play, right? It's like
Right.
you're on this earth for a short amount of time.
Mhm.
And, we want to be in relationships that are substantial and that will last. We don't
Right.
need a quick sale. I mean, all business is not good business, right? And so I think that the way you speaks to the fact that you care. And
Right.
as a founder, I mean, you're a founder,
Yep.
as a founder, we also know that finding people that have our back is hard.
Yes, yes,
No.
absolutely. And finding people that will, go to bat for you and people. Well, I would say the other like thing that we find is we're always reminding like our sales team and our account managers of like, hey, people move on to other jobs, right? They do different things. Nobody stays, especially nowadays, it doesn't feel like people stay in the same spot for long. So many times, the experience might not be perfect where it was at, but they always come back. And we always have that saying of like, don't worry, if we did the right thing with the information that we have, like, don't worry, like they'll always come back. And we have somebody that's leaving a company now, and it'll be interesting to see if the company stays with us because they got a new operations person. But the person that's moving forward has already said to us, they're like, "Oh, you're going to get the business at this new place where I'm at. Just give me like 5 months." So that's always like super reassuring. I mean, word spreads, right?
I mean, and we can give a shout out to the guy that brought us together, Dr. Jeremy Wise from Rice
Yeah,
Cookie
what's up,
Time.
Dr. J?
Dr. J, it's interesting. I met some old ABA players recently. There's a movie called The Waiting Game that my friend Michael Hussein has directed and produced about how when the NBA and ABA came together, a lot of those ABA players, got screwed in the long term. And
Yeah,
so I was asking one of these guys to sign an ABA basketball for Dr.
yeah,
J. Well, obviously Dr. J is a great basketball player. But
right.
when we think of our Dr. J, he's Dr. J. But Jeremy Wise, I mean, he brought us together, and that's what a great partner does, right? It's like
Yeah,
they're thinking about you, and he called me. He goes, "You need to immediately respond to my email. Paul Jarrett's going to be a great guest for you." So
yeah, yeah. He's such a, I mean, he's one of those people where, it's not hard to be friends with him, right? And I've been talking and working with him for over a decade, and he is just always that anything podcast related, like I go to him for answers, and he's a text away, and I don't know how he keeps up with everybody, frankly.
yeah, he does a great job. It's not unusual for me to get 5 calls from him in the morning, and
Yeah,
I'll call him 5 times, and my wife thinks we have like a psycho relationship. But
that's
and
awesome.
it'll be from 6:15 to 8 o'clock in the morning, and
Yep,
so,
yep,
and he loves to talk about working out. He loves to talk about protein, and he loves to talk
yep.
about the quality of food. And it's also interesting. I'm sure you've come across this with him. He's very calm. He's a
Yes,
very calm man. And
yeah.
Now, speaking of staying calm, you have not only built this amazing business with all these great clients, but you've also been in business with your wife.
Yeah, yeah.
And so there's so much I want to ask you about that. But your wife, Stephanie, shout out to Stephanie.
I always say my first wife.
So tell us about that. Is there, anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, well, first off, hats off to her. She just won Inc. Top Female Founders, so she just got recognized for that. So I think, by the time this launches, it'll be public knowledge. So that's really awesome. She's really kind of paving the way in logistics for females, and I always think it's like super cool when there's like a room full of old school logistics dudes and they're all fat old gray-haired men, right? And she's just like running circles around them. They always look at me and I'm like, don't look at me, look at her. But no, it's awesome. We started off I mean, our first project was like in college together, and then the first place we work, actually we did the advertising agency thing for a long time. So we started off working at an ad agency together, and I think between the both of us, we worked at something like 9 different ad agencies over our career. And either she was creative and I was account side, or I made the jump at one point to a copywriter and she was on the account side. But it's almost weird to say, but I don't know if we know how to work without each other. Like we're so complementary.
Wonderful.
And yeah, but it all started with, I was just totally burnt out of working, the corporate world. And, she could see that and she was really supportive and she said, why don't you go start something? So, I kind of dabbled in a few different ideas and, kind of came up with this idea originally for Bulu Box. So we started as a subscription sample box. And I'll forever remember, we had one income and we're trying to make it happen. And she walks in one day because she was doing all the web dev on the back end anyway. And she's like, guess what? I quit my job. And I was like, you what? Like, you what? Oh, that's great. And she's like, yeah, we're going to go at it together. And so we hit it hard. And I used to be embarrassed to say this, but now I'm pretty proud of it. But we, within pretty much 67 days of us starting the idea, had 1.5 million in funding in our bank account from venture capitalists. And I think between the both of us, we've done literally every single thing in the company you can imagine. And it's one of those things where I tell people, I'm like, when it's amazing, it's amazing. And when you're on the same page and when you both have the same goals, I mean, there's a reason that we're able to land Disney, land Clorox, land GNC, and that's the combination of us two working together. But I'll tell you what, when it's not fun, it is not fun. When it's not good, it's rough, right? And I'd say over a 12-year span, we've always been on the same page until when the pandemic hit, which I say, like, show me any founder or any VC group and founder, anybody that stayed on the same page. And it was rough. I mean, we had 250 plus people working for us, having a logistics company. I mean, just anything you can imagine went wrong, from people just not paying bills to, kind of fights breaking out in the warehouse about masks and whatever. And it was bad. I mean, I think a lot of people kind of leave work and they look to their spouse, to kind of vent or, work through those things. And it was almost like, the gloves came off when we went home, right? But I would say that the nice thing about it is through all of it, one thing that we always agreed to each other, and this was advice that was given to us by another couple, another founder, was no matter what, draw a line and say if XYZ happens, the other person gets to XYZ. And that line for us was at any moment in time, either one of us can quit and the other person can't ask any questions and we don't have to answer any questions. And so like, I think mentally having that out of like, I could just look at her and be like, hey, I'm out, you got to deal with it or whatever, or vice versa. I think that's a really powerful tool to have kind of in your back pocket. And I think ultimately like, we've always put our relationship first, and we've always been, I think the thing that a lot of founders or couples miss is we've always maintained a level of respect for each other. So, being able to say like, hey, that's hidden below the belt, right? Or that's something for home, not work or whatever. But just like anything, if you can make it through those hard times, I don't care if it's your friend, co-founder, spouse, or whatever, you are that much stronger on the other end. And we used to believe that we were bulletproof, before, but I'd say post-pandemic, like we are definitely bulletproof. And what I love now is all these little issues that will always come up for any founders that own a business. The volume on them is so low now. Like we work on things, we don't even talk to each other or whatever, because like we both have a level of respect for each other. We both know we can get out at any time if we want to. And I think, we really are just always in like we're just those people that kind of like try to level up all the time. And there's really like a sense of admiration. Like right now, the stuff that Stephanie's doing, and I give all credit to her for we acquired our company from venture capitalists in 2023. And I tell people, I'm like, look, I got the ball to the 1 yard line, but I could not close the deal. And it took her closing the deal. And so, all this stuff with like the female founders and the ink recognition that she's getting, like she deserves all of it and more. So no, it's just, I would say, one of those things where we have to force ourselves once a month to meet up and just really get on the same page. And, whether it's we had a meeting recently and I blew her away because we've always wanted to add, I'd say our biggest downfall is always adding revenue streams and expanding the business and whatever. And I really blew her mind because I just said, you know what? We're just going to like shut up and keep growing and making, we're not going to do anything more. And she was like, why am I the one now that wants to grow and do, multiple revenue streams and grow the business in certain ways? But staying on that same page, I just think is so crucial. And then the kind of last thing that I'd leave it on is like, really know when to give the other person space. And I'm not saying like an hour a day. I mean, there's certain things that have gone down where it's like, don't talk about that for, give them a month or two before you come back to that issue. But yeah, it's I don't know what, and she would say the same thing, like, I don't know what our marriage would be like without kind of a business, right? And then I guess the last thing I'd say is the best benefit is it's made raising children really easy. After you run a company for a long time and you have hundreds of employees, we're like, man, this parenting thing's a cakewalk. Like we know who's accountable for what, when one kid says one thing. So that's probably been the unforeseen benefit is we have two awesome young boys that are very mature and very smart. And hopefully we don't operate like a business too much at home. But no, it's great. I wouldn't change it for the world.
And I want to just restate my takeaways or state my takeaways. It's like
Yeah.
I got two things out of it. One is, regardless, you operate with a sense of respect for each other, which I think so many people can learn from. And secondly, what I'm hearing in there is that it's based on agreement. Everything is based on agreement. You've even got an agreement of what happens if everything goes to shit. So I
Yep.
think that is such an important, beautiful learning for leaders, whether you're in business with your spouse or not,
Mhm.
to have agreements. Because the problem with expectations is that sometimes they're unknown. Like you don't know what the other person's expecting.
Right. Yeah, or just unrealistic, right? Like I tell people, I'm like, I'll never meet the expectations for myself, so Lord knows anybody else is going to meet them. But one thing that we do run, have you ever heard of EOS Worldwide
Of course.
Entrepreneurial?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
We run that religiously, and I would say that that has been almost a framework like for our marriage, right? Like knowing what the other person is accountable for, knowing how to like IDS, like identify, discuss, and solve. Like it's amazing how year 3 or 4, when we started using entrepreneurial operating system, how that also kind of bled into the marriage and how we operate. So we definitely knowing, as you say, an agreement like who is accountable for what and what we kind of stick our nose into and what we don't. So that's been really beneficial.
Paul, you and I have just come back from Expo. What a blast, right?
Yeah, yeah, just a
I gotta
whirlwind.
I gotta ask you, one of the things that, occurred to me, I was talking to a couple of founders. and such like, wonderful discussions. But a lot of founders are, and I can think of one, I'm not going to name him, but he pulled out of retail. And
Yeah.
one of the reasons he pulled out, and I mean, look, it's a sacred cow. I'm just going to go there. It's like, hey, it is difficult to
Yeah.
work with the distribution system,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it's like, hey, I've got you talk about unexpected things. It's like I've got this fee and that fee, and I can't get in, and and getting in doesn't mean you're going to sell anything. And there's just all these hoops to jump through, whether it's
Yeah.
KE or Unify or whoever, it is. It's like, what do you do in those situations? It's like, is there a way around that?
Yeah. It's, I hate to say it, but I like, after 12 years of going to Expo, it sometimes becomes painful when you go to a booth and you can immediately see like an issue with the product or whatever, packaging or, whatever. So that always hurts. But then you start to hear about these folks and their agreements with, I'll name names, KE, Unify, Palco, whoever. And you just want to kind of look at them and just shake them and go like, you're never going to get through the clutter, right? And something that we're trying to figure out how to say better, but we really, the brands that we're working with and the brands that are part of Bulu, we help them bypass a lot of distribution and sell direct. And that's like been, kind of like a strategy that a lot of people don't even know exists. And they're like, well, don't you have to do it this way to get into these retailers? And the answer is no, you don't. Now, if you go through distributors, do you have an opportunity to hit a lot more sprouts? Like, sure, but can you sell directly to each store individually? Absolutely, you can. And I think it's such a better opportunity for people. And one thing that, we've grown from, I think we've grown 50, 60 clients in the past year. And we basically looked at our clients and we were kind of going like, man, these clients X, Y, and Z are really progressing and like, why are they doing well? And so I had like a call with a lot of the operations people and kind of the strategy that they had talked to each other about, but didn't really, we were kind of like missing it, was they're actually going to a lot of independent retailers are going store by store. And one of the things that we offer our clients is you don't actually have to sell pallets or cases, but you can go to individual chains, whether it's one store or maybe 500 stores, and sell directly to them. And so it's been a really awesome strategy for the brands that we work with to store pack ship with us, but we will fulfill any channel, whether it's direct to customers' homes, Amazon, or social media. And then the most important one is, we have one store that's doing probably about 2 stores per week for the last year, where they just have their sales team directly going to the retailer and saying like, hey, we work with Bulu. Tell me exactly what you want, individually. And they put those orders in and it comes over, by 11 a.m. the next day it goes out. And that's been a really effective strategy, and it's like, I understand KE, Unify, like they have their place and everything, but it's really hard for me to go through Expo and to kind of like look at the products and then all they're doing is like, hey, we got picked up by KE or Unify or, we're just working with them. I'm like, man, that's not going to cut it. You need to hit all of the channels. And frankly, I think a lot of folks, what they wish and what the market wants is very different. And that's the thing that I wish I could really get, especially the founders and entrepreneurs to realize is like, you know, um, you might not like Amazon, but if your sales are coming from there, really dissect why that is. Is it Prime? Is it because it's easier to use? Also, the other thing is like different channels don't have to be the same thing. And our best clients, they'll do like variety packs on Amazon, exclusive products on their own website. And then they'll also have like specific products that are like for mass distribution. And that's where I see kind of like things going is the companies that really understand the sales channel and what that channel wants and can kind of build a product or combination or variety pack for those channels, those are the ones that I see that are really excelling. But man, there's just nothing that beats a salesperson or a founder with a little, fire in their belly, right? And they pick up the phone and they go sell to somebody and they just come back to us and say, here and we integrate it in the platform and boom, they're shipping the next day. And those are the people that we want is like, who has the product and the team that are just picking up and calling the buyers and doing the work, and we will fulfill that on the back end with no headaches whatsoever. And those are the best. A founder with a little bit of fire in their belly is like really our best clients for sure.
I love what you're saying for so many reasons. One of them is that it's not the size, but it's uh, how it fits, right? And it's like, hey, but it's like I want to personalize it. I want to be careful and cautious about, and I think you said de-risk.
Yeah.
I want to be cautious about my growth, but I also I think I wanted to also ask you about how much of that is also more manageable because hey, let's say you decide to go, to two stores in Indianapolis, right? Now I'm going
Yep.
to tell my social team, hey, build the audience or build, more importantly, build reach and build awareness in Indianapolis. So now I got in the store, I sold them, and Bulu is going to get it to the two stores. And now I can
Yep.
build that audience. And now I'm selling successfully in two stores rather than selling unsuccessfully in 25 stores.
Yep. And also I like the thing that's wild is now you can go say, I'm selling in Costco, right? You don't have to go through a distributor and get into everybody and say, I'm selling in Costco. Just get into one of their stores, like, or a Walgreens. Like a lot of these retail stores also will have a local program where people can, like Walgreens has like, I don't know, 5 or 10% of their shelf space for like local stuff. And I'm like, man, go get in there and we'll ship to them. And then now you can go tell the other retailers and brands that like, hey, I am selling in Walgreens or Costco. And also what we've seen too is the data that's pulling from spins or whatever, like a lot of times it's not going to say, oh, this store is only buying like 5 individual products. Like it's just going to say you're in the retail store. And a lot of the data appears like you're sending pallets anyway. So yeah, it's just that thing of like, that slow build of like just get into retail somewhere and don't throw all your eggs in the basket, assuming KE or Unify is going to do it for you. Because, like, guess what? Like, there's a lot of fees, and a lot of times those salespeople are just like looking for their commissions, right?
Yeah, it's an amazing and actually innovative, very innovative, and as you
Yeah.
say, de-risked piece of advice. So I really love that. I mean, I was going to ask you, how do you take care of yourself?
I probably need to do a better job of that. I would say that you know I used to do the like wild workout, all that stuff, and I would say that after 12 years. I used to be the more like get up at 5 a.m., do like all of those things. And I think after 12 years, the way that I like really honestly take care of myself is I really focus in on the things that I'm good at. And if anything, I'd say like taking care of myself means more hiring the right people, getting out of their way, and focusing in on what I'm good at. And what that has left me with is, I probably shouldn't say this, but like I've had more time than I've had probably since we started the business. So I think like mentally not trying to manage everything and really focusing in on what I'm good at. And then as far as like, just really limiting or not having any sort of like, alcohol, tobacco, anything like that. I see a lot of founders like really kind of utilize that stuff in a bad way, right? But I would say that by focusing on less, it leaves more brain power to do other things. And then I'd also say like, man, honestly, the thing that I do to take care of myself is like I hang out with my kids. Like you ever want to not think about work or you ever want to not think about whatever, just go take your kid to the park or to the creek or whatever. And I would say that as far as like fitness and mental health, just go try chasing frogs with like a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old for a couple of hours and you'll get fit really quick.
And you're keeping it real about what really matters, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
as you in your agreement with your wife Stephanie, it's like, hey, if it all burns down, right, what do you got left? It's like you got that
yeah,
family left, and you're going to take care of them, and they're going to give you the most joy anyway. So I think that that's a
yep.
beautiful implied, both express and implied balance that you kind of just have in your life.
Yeah, I think I had this like epiphany probably post-pandemic of, you know, before for 10 years, like I said, I was so regimented, like get up, work out, do this, do this, do this. And that became like really stressful. And then I almost like really took a step back and looked at other entrepreneurs and I was like, what are the best entrepreneurs in the world actually doing, right? Like, are they getting up and doing X, Y, and Z? Maybe if they enjoy those things. But really, what I found kind of in my research, and I talked to like 50 some founders about this, and I was looking for people that were happy and had time on their hands, right? And it was just this constant conversation about how they're like, I just focus on a few things and I kind of like let all that other stuff go. And what comes of that is, like I said, like mentally you have more brain power to focus on those things. And then also you have more time. And I just happen to like really enjoy hanging out with kids, my kids, and I've got really good at Fortnite. So, that's also
Man, I need to do that. You just like called me out. I mean, I take fashion advice from my son, but I have not played Fortnite with him, so I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one.
yeah, we got my wife, myself, and my two boys all playing, and I'm telling you, she's the killer out of all of us. And so, it'll be funny. She'll be like, guys, like, let's play Fortnite. We got to get a victory tonight. We're like, who are you? Like, whose mom is dominating on Fortnite? But that's just how she is.
I gotta ask you a couple more questions. One of them is was whispered into my ear by Dr. Jeremy Wise, and he said that Paul is really good at getting his message across. He's really good at, some people are very good at making noise. You seem to be really great at like a signal. Like, what's your advice to people on how to do that?
Yeah, I think that comes a lot from my time in advertising and marketing. And I would say that the thing that, and I've been told this by people that I've worked with, is like, I really think through, especially going to expos, podcasts, like et cetera, et cetera. I really try to think about like, okay, like what is the goal of this thing that I'm doing? And what happens 1 week or 2 weeks after the event or the situation? Like, what do I like really want people to remember? Because like Maya Angelou said, like people don't remember what you said, they remember how you made them feel, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So true, right? And I would say like at Expo, like being really empathetic to people. And then the only thing that I wanted them to remember, and this is like what I think is like all Bulu logistics. Like if I can get those three things and just kind of beat them into people's heads, then when I follow up, I'm just hoping for like, oh, you're that one dude that stopped by and you didn't sell me on anything, and didn't you do something with shipping and receiving? And so, depending on what the event is and what the thing is, I really go into it. And as much as I want, I also think of it like this, like how many times do you actually go meet somebody and they're like, you're awesome, you're sold, I want your service, right? It never happens, right? Like what is the actual process? And with our sales team and with our people, we have our process broken down to about 6 steps, right? And like the first step is all we're trying to do is like have them remember like Bulu and logistics. The next step, all we're trying to do is like just to get a conversation about pricing started, right? And then the next step is like make sure that we're talking to the right person. So, depending on what the thing is, I always think of those steps. And ultimately, I remind myself too of it's never usually the direct, like we were talking about this a little earlier, like it's never usually the direct interaction. It's the people that you talk to who they tell. So like, what do I want people to know about me? I mean, just with this, like I have a warehouse behind me. Like we are in logistics. Like it is happening, right? I have the Bulu logo here, right? Like it's all by design because ultimately I just want whenever that conversation comes up, people to just go like, hey, I think I know this guy. Like I heard him on this podcast, I heard whatever. And, it doesn't sound like they're going to hard sell you. They just want to answer logistics questions. And he was doing something different, but I don't remember what it was. Like, let's give him a call. So I think just always having those one-liners and knowing like what is the next step, not don't think sale, just think like, what's the next thing that I want them to think after we're not talking or they're not interacting with Bulu? Like step by step is like such a important part that salespeople miss.
That's amazing. I mean, this has been a straight up masterclass, my man.
Thanks.
Thanks for sharing your insights on, building a successful, a mega successful relationship in both business and life with your spouse, on scaling, on
So far.
innovation, and also, step by step how to build a signal. And so I'm going to say to our listeners, if you're a brand, that's ready to ship, like the big guys without the headaches, if you're ready to take on a partner that knows what's up and is going to like have your back, Bulu Group, and reach out to Paul, Jarrett on LinkedIn. And, I think that it's just for me as kind of I'm not a newbie to logistics, but I think that a lot of people are like me and they think that you have to go a certain route. And Paul's company, Bulu Group, can really give you some options and
Yep.
I think you always got to ask why, right? Like, why do I have to do it that way? Why can't I do it this way? And so thank you so much, Paul, for being so generous with your time today.
How could I appreciate it, man? Had a blast.
Now, just let's remind everyone how to find you one more time.
Well, we're bulugroup.com or pauljarrett.com. But honestly, thank you to the listeners if you made it this far and just drop me an email. It's paul@Bulu Group and happy to chat up business with anybody.
He's very active on LinkedIn, and so you can check him out there. Thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of the Firebelly Social Show, where we talk to leaders and founders of mission-driven brands, food and beverage, and today an amazing brand that works with a lot of food and beverage brands. So that's it for today. Keep building the momentum, stay in the game. Thank you to Firebelly Marketing, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for listening to the Firebelly Social Show. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.